Dave listens to Hi-Fi. Dave listens to Hi-Fi.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Dave Listens to Hi-Fi. So, I don't know if you've been following Angela Gilbert Yeung's YouTube channel. They have a number of videos on a system that they've kind of created. They call it a 6S2C system. And what that is it's a 6-speaker setup for 2-channel listening. So it basically uses 3 pairs of speakers, 3 stereo amplifiers, and then a single 2-channel input. And the idea is that you have multiple speakers, 2 sets in front and 1 set behind you. And then when you balance this correctly with the proper distances and rear speakers out of phase and front speakers, you adjust the relative gain of the 2 speakers, it gives a enhanced presence, better sound stage, wider sound stage, more depth, bigger presentation, all this improvements in engagement and sound stage presentation. Maybe some frequency extremes improved as well based on what speakers you're selecting. And so I was watching the videos, and Angela Gilbert Yeung reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you like to try this? You should set it up." And so I have done exactly that, and I've been playing with this system for a little bit, and I wanted to show you how I did it and what was involved, and then what my impressions were of this setup in my room. So I started with my main system. I like the way my system's set up, and I think it was a good basis for beginning the system. For the time being, the system set up the way it is with my main speakers and amplifier and everything where it is, I left that. So that was my baseline that I started with. I added a front rear stage set of speakers, which is a set of Norescos. Some old vintage speakers, and I powered it with a AV receiver. And then I put rear speakers. I used a set of bookshelf speakers, some triangles that I had. And I powered that with a little Class D amplifier module that I had put into a box and used as a kind of a desktop amplifier. And then I balanced the whole system out. And so this is what it looks like. Okay, so in my 6S2C trial system here, this is what I'm using. This is my regular preamp. It's a Dodge 8 preamp, and it has on the back 3 sets of outputs. And they're all controlled by the volume, so it's easy for me to set up this system. I'm really fortunate to have that built in. So just using my regular Dodge preamp. Now, in terms of my regular system, the Dodge feeds into my Krell amp, and then it feeds my 2 main speakers here. So I'm using this amp and these speakers as the front stage main speakers, the front stage front speakers. In the back, I've got these speakers here, which are Noresco speakers. It's a German isophone driver. It is about 97 dB efficient. It's a 2-way paper cone. The crossover to a paper cone tweeter is just with 1 capacitor, and then the other driver is full range. So very pure sounding, very colored, efficient, dynamic, but they're kind of fun speakers. But I'm using them as backstage front speakers. Those speakers there are powered by this Yamaha receiver, Yamaha AV receiver, in 2-channel mode, pure direct. So no EQ and no processing. And that is fed with a variable pre-out to here. Now I have a volume control, a remote volume control on the Yamaha, so I can adjust the relative volume of these 2 speakers. And I can also mute it remote. So I can sit on my listening chair here and I can use the Yamaha remote to mute. I used the volume control just to set up the volume, and then I just use the mute to turn on and off the rear front speakers. For the rear speakers, I have a third pre-out going to this. This is a little box with a Class D amplifier module in it. And I've got a volume control here, and then the switched on and off. And this is powering my triangle Comet speakers, which are somewhat behind me, but they are angled back and they are firing kind of behind me to give me my rear stage. And those speakers are out of phase from the front speakers. And so I can just reach over here and turn the amp on and off to turn on and off that speaker, and then I can mute the Yamaha to turn off these speakers, and I listen to it as my normal 2-channel system. And then I just use the remote. I turn off the muting on this, and then those speakers are active, and I reach behind me and I turn on the other amp, and then I've got the full 6S2C system. So that's how I've been listening to it, and it's been interesting. So setting up the system, the way I used my components was relatively easy. Basically, I plugged it in. And with the remote volume on the Yamaha, I could change because so setting up the system the way I have it was relatively easy. I turned on the whole system. The front speakers are both in phase with each other, and I turn on the Yamaha AV receiver. Now that's being powered through the variable output from my Dodge 8, and then I can adjust the volume control of the Yamaha, and it changes the relative volume of the two speakers. When I turn up the Dodge, it turns up both sets of speakers in the front at the same time. So I just use the remote control for the Yamaha to adjust the relative volume of the rear speakers. And what I did was I adjusted it up and down until the speakers were about the same. I was the same sound volume from each. I could hear the character of both sets of speakers, and one wasn't overpowering the other. I would turn it down a bit, and I wouldn't hear the Norescos. I turn it up, and then I get too much coloration, too much sound from the rear speakers. So I adjusted the volume of the Yamaha just to get that nice balance, a nice even balance between the 4 sets of front speakers, the front stage and then the rear stage speakers. So once that volume was set, I really didn't touch it. For the rear speakers, when I set that up, I basically turned up the volume until I could hear them, and of course they were running out of phase. And then I just turned down the volume until I just lost sense that I was hearing them. If I turn them down more, basically it did nothing. If I turn it up more, then it kind of moves the sound stage back. So I just turned it down just to the point where you don't really notice them playing. But if you switch it off, it makes a difference. So you switch it on, you don't really hear them, but it does add to the sense of the whole system. So with it set up like that, what was I getting? And like I said, it was easy for me. Muted the Yamaha, reached over here, switched off the rear speakers, so I can compare directly 2-channel 2 speaker and 2-channel 6 speaker. And the 2-channel 6 speaker, I have to admit, it does make for a very impressive and immersive listening experience. It was, on certain kinds of music, it was really impressive. Latest David Bowie, or the last David Bowie, Black Star, it just created such a wide and enveloping soundstage. Just the music was, you were really in the music. I mean, David Bowie was singing in front, the drums were in the back, but certain effects, especially if the effects were kind of out of phase in the mix, they would be more prominent in the rear or on the sides here because of them being out of phase. It would kind of change the way it was presented with the soundstage, with the rear speakers. And so, some of the effects were really prominent, and then just you felt so immersed in the music, and it just sounded so much bigger and more enveloping. It was a very impressive way of listening. I tried some mono jazz, some old Coltrane, some Miles Davis, Thelonious Monk, and on the mono recordings, it was still two-dimensional in terms of front and back, but there was a bigger presentation. It sounded like I was kind of stepping into the music, and had that grander sound. On some music, small acoustic music, I found it made things too big, just unnatural. Some stuff it just kind of wrapped around, and it sounded a bit too diffuse. Maybe on music that was very processed in the studio, with a lot of multi-tracks and a lot of very little live recording of the music. It kind of created an unnaturally large soundstage. But on stuff that was well recorded and more simple recordings, I found it really enhanced the presence of the music. The vocals kind of almost did some effects like a good tube amp will do, where it gives enhanced dimensionality to the individual sounds. They sound rounder and more fleshed out. But it would present a wider, deeper soundstage with height, and it would really wrap around a lot more than when listening to two channels. A lot of times when I would just switch off, just mute the Yamaha and turn off the rear speakers, it kind of collapsed the music and really brought it just down into the center here. And so I was enjoying listening to it. Ultimately, though, the more extended listening I did with the system, and this is a factor of how I listen to music. I usually come down at night. I don't use streaming, and so that's how I listen to music, is usually on a CD or on some vinyl. When I do that, I put it on and I listen to multiple songs in a row, 15, 20 minutes to hours long listening sessions. And I just sit down and I just concentrate on the music. I don't have a TV here. I don't have any screens in front of me. It's just purely put on the music and listen to it and listen to the presentation of the music. When I was trying the 6S2C system here, it initially very engaging, very enveloping, and kind of hard to switch back to two channel after you heard this grand 6-speaker system. But ultimately I found that it made me a little uneasy, and it made it harder to concentrate on the music. Physically it did have less detail. I think the time domain changes with all the arrival times and the different, completely different speaker systems I'm using really affected the resolution. It was a bit more diffuse. You couldn't hear all the pinpoint things. When I collapsed it down to just two channel only, it's like it was a lot more focused. It was you could hear the details more clearly. Things, ambience, room cues. The sound of the room was bigger and more enveloping with the 6-speaker system. But on the 2-channel system, it was more prominent, and it was easier to hear and easier to pick out. And ultimately, I found the 6-speaker system to be a bit unnerving and not relaxing. And I have like extended listening sessions. But with the 6-speaker setup, I found it initially impressive, but ultimately it really made me almost nervous, and it made me always question what I was hearing. I always felt uneasy listening to it, wondering if that was how it was supposed to sound, and it just, I didn't relax into the music in a way that I do with a 2-speaker, 2-channel system. And so ultimately I'm enjoying testing it out. But really, when I come down and I put down music and I just want to sit and relax and listen to my system, which is ultimately my final goal, and I believe many of yours' final goals, is just to select some music and to really enjoy the music with the use of your high quality system, and relax and discover the music and enjoy the music and hear into the music and appreciate the musicianship, appreciate the songwriting, appreciate the craft of the recorded music. And that, I found my enjoyment was lessened when I had it on the 6-channel system. Now, I don't have a home theater system, so I'm not really used to hearing the multiple speaker systems and movies and music on multiple speaker setups. So maybe if you're used to that, this 6-speaker 2-channel setup might interest you more. Maybe if I had different speakers, or maybe my setup isn't ideal, it could have been a different thing. But I played around with it a bit. Different speaker combinations, different setups. This ultimately gave me the best sound, the best presentation, but in the end, it was just unnerving and hard to relax and hard to enjoy the music the way I normally do with this 6-channel setup. But I encourage anyone to try it. It wasn't trivial, but it wasn't really difficult either for me to do it, especially with my amplifier, because it has one set of XLR outs and then 2 RCA pre-outs. So my XLR cables goes to my Krell, and then the 2 RCAs went to my other speakers, and so it was fairly easy for me to set it up. I know Gilbert Yeung is creating some boxes where I think it's taking maybe speaker level and then creating pre-outs, which is a great way to do it. And then you can just hook this up through your speakers and then get your pre-outs and then hook up your multiple amps, and then you can try it like that. And then I think they have some with knobs so you can adjust the volumes. For me, it was easy because of my extra amplifiers were not just pure power amplifiers, they're integrated amplifiers, so they did have volume controls on them, and then it was easy to change all the volumes and get it set up properly. But that was my experience. I'm glad I tried it. I encourage you to try it, and I'd love to see, when you try it, leave me a comment. Let me know what you hear, or if you have an opportunity to hear it at someone else's place, let me know what you think. Also, if you have a home theater system and you have some like maybe 5.1 systems that you can listen in 2-channel, let me know how that works for you as well. I'm really curious to know, because for me it was impressive. It was very spectacular. It had a new dimension to the music. But ultimately, I just couldn't live with it, and I'll be happy to kind of take this stuff out and just listen to my 2-channel system again. So there you go. Thanks for watching. This has been Dave Listens to Hi-Fi. Please like the video if you like it. Subscribe to my channel. I would love to have more subscribers, working my way up there. Thank you for watching and contributing your comments. I read all my comments and reply to everyone. So thanks again. Take care. See you next time.